Hello everyone, this is Mr. Fusen. I've got a interesting video for you. This is, to my knowledge, the only video on YouTube where someone has took wild raspberries and began to cultivate them and domesticate them. As you can see here, these are wild raspberries. You've heard them probably called black cap raspberries, but I dug these raspberries up along my fence row where they grew wild, and I transplanted them on black landscaping fabric year before last. And no, I take that back. That was last spring that I done that. Well, I transplanted them last year and gave them some triple 10 fertilizer, and they took off like crazy, making primicanes. Last year they had floricanes, but they were kind of stunted where I just dug them up and planted them. But this year they have floricanes. Last year they made these and they were primicanes. Now this year they're called floricanes. The way I remember it is prime or pre, meaning the first year, and floricane meaning flower for this year. And then these will all die and they'll be replaced with primicanes for next year. I know that might be a little confusing, but it's really not. But now you can see how awesome these look. I'm having a problem with crabgrass taking over, so I'll have to do a little spraying for that. But that's what these are. These are wild raspberries, and they will absolutely be covered this year. As long as I can keep the deer away from them, I should have a bumper crop of wild raspberries. And by pruning them and making them shorter and bushier, they might, I believe the berries will be bigger. This one here is kind of weird looking. I think I might have gave it just a little bit too much fertilizer, and that's why you see the leaves maybe curling up a little, but I believe it'll be okay. And see, you see here, this is a light green cane. That's this is a primicane. It won't produce this year, but it will next year. And these are, see how they got a frosty blue look to them? These will have berries this year. And over here, I've got some blackberries that a friend of mine gave me, and I'm just letting them get established a little bit, and then I'll work with them. But black plastic and black fabric is the way to go, because it really cuts back on the weeds, but you still have to keep the spray around the outside edges to keep the grass at bay, and a weed eater gets a hold of that stuff and it'll really mess it up. And I'll show you another little neat thing I've done is down here on the edge of the woods we've got wild blackberries. Well, I said, instead of weed eating them to the ground and getting rid of them, what if I topped them? And as you can see here, I cut these off at the top right here, which makes them want to bush out and make more lateral vines and or lateral limbs, which should in return produce bigger blackberries. Probably not as many, but bigger. And so I just went and done this back in the fall. But now you can see how that on a blackberry, they do the same thing as the raspberry. You've got down here, coming up from the ground, a briar that'll have fruit next year, not this year. So the good Lord above knows what he's doing. He puts things and everything in order. And I laid the fertilizer to these too. So I'm interested to see how we can domesticate and cultivate wild fruit to get the most out of it. I mean, if you can't beat them, join them. If they're all around your yard and you're gonna have to cut them down, but that's not really hurting nothing. I mean, it's just over here in the edge of my yard. If you're mowing all of this, you got to stop somewhere. So I just let them grow, and I figure I'll keep this cleaned up. I'll weed eat around them and maybe spray a little Roundup around them. Hopefully I won't kill them, and hopefully I'll come back with a second video when when they're in bloom or when they're bearing fruit, and let you guys see the results. And if we can keep the deers out of these, actually the deer kind of pruned them up for me last year. I was really mad at the deer, but I guess they kind of done me a favor, to be honest with you. The deer won't eat the floricanes, but they love these little primocanes. See, they'll nibble the tops off of these, and they'll cut them off down to here, and where it's soft and tender. And what happens is everything else bushes out. So the deer can actually help these berries a little bit. But if you don't keep them out, I put up this wire to keep them out. They'll eat them plumb to the ground, the primocanes. But that's really all the video that we have here. And to the best of my knowledge, this is the only video on YouTube of someone cultivating black raspberry or black wild raspberries and wild blackberries. But coming out of southeastern Kentucky, this is Mr. Fuson, and God bless you and have a great day.